Prologue. A caravan led by a trader named Bruno is traveling through the dangerous Worm's Whiskers forest, infested with monsters and bandits. He has hired a group of adventurers, including a gloomy young magician named Rudius Greyrat, to protect his valuable shipment. Rudeus is heading north to search for his missing mother, who disappeared during the Fitoa displacement incident. Suzanne, a member of the hired guards, tries to strike up a conversation with Rudeus, but he is uninterested in talking. She proceeds to give him a primer on the Northern Territories, a harsh land with few resources and many monsters, but also home to the Magic Nations. Suzanne and her party are heading north to establish themselves there, and Rudius is also traveling in that direction, though he has no specific destination in mind. Chapter 1. Rudeus arrives in the city of Rosenberg, a major exporter of magical implements to Asura. He notes the cold weather and bustling streets filled with adventurers and merchants. After finding an inn, he reflects on his recent breakup with Eris and his mission to find his missing mother, Zenith. He decides to become famous as an adventurer in hopes that Zenith or someone who knows her will come find him. He plans to spread the word about himself as a boy magician looking for his mother. The protagonist is in a cold, snow-covered city trying to find Zenith. He contemplates whether it's worth trying to find her since the Fitoa search and rescue squad couldn't locate her. He decides to try anyway, and heads to the Rosenberg Adventurers Guild. He disbands his old party, and cries when he realizes he's alone. He picks an A-rank job to slay luster grizzlies, but the clerk tells him it's too dangerous to do alone. A party called Counter Arrow offers to team up with him, and although he initially declines, he eventually agrees after realizing he needs to meet more people to build his reputation as an adventurer. They agree to meet at the North Gate the next morning to prepare for their journey. Despite the scowling Sarah, Rudius is excited to start his new adventure. Chapter 2. Rudius heads to the northern gate of the city to meet up with Counter Arrow, a group of adventurers he's temporarily joined. He arrives early and waits for them, feeling nervous about working with strangers. When they finally arrive, he introduces himself and learns about the party's structure and members. They set off on their expedition to hunt luster grizzlies, with Rudeus in a support role. During a group meeting, Rudeus suggests different ways he could contribute, but Sarah shoots down all his ideas. Despite feeling underutilized, Rudeus tries to learn from the party's teamwork and keep his mouth shut. As the party prepares to take on a pack of luster grizzlies, Rudeus reflects on the strengths and weaknesses of his fellow adventurers. Sarah, a prodigy with the bow, stands out for her talent and combat skills. However, the group's systematic approach leaves little room for experimentation, and they don't know exactly what Rudeus is capable of. As they begin their attack, they realize too late that there is a second pack of grizzlies, camouflaged in mud, rushing towards them. With no options left, the party is forced to make a run for it. Despite their fear, they choose to stand their ground and fight. Rudeus is moved by their determination and remembers the answer to why they fight. He uses his magic to defeat the monsters, and they collect their pelts and tails to sell. Back in town, they are met with hostility from the locals, but Timothy's strategy of buying drinks for everyone earns them temporary popularity. Rudeus reflects on the people who have given him something to live for and decides to keep moving forward, tossing his memento of Eris into the heating stove. In Chapter 2 of Mushoku Tensei Light Novel Volume 7, Sarah reflects on her dislike for aristocrats like Rudius Greyrat, who she assumes is just another rich kid trying to play at being an adventurer. However, she underestimates him, and is surprised when he single-handedly defeats a pack of luster grizzlies. Despite this, Sarah still harbors resentment towards Rudeus, and refuses to admit that he may be telling the truth about his missing mother. Chapter 3. In Chapter 3 of Mushoku Tensei Light Novel, Volume 7, Quagmire, aka Rudeus, goes for a run in the pre-dawn gloom and names his legs Tyndalos and Baskerville, hoping to inspire them to grow as quick and nimble as a pair of bloodhounds. He then turns his attention to his arms, naming his right arm Hulk and his left arm Hercules, hoping to mature them into a pair of brawny monsters. Quagmire is working to establish himself as an adventurer, and has been helping out different groups for 1/10 of the monetary rewards, and a 50% cut on whatever loot he can carry back. He has also convinced a few traveling parties to keep their eyes open for his mother, Zenith. Counter Arrow regularly invites him to join them on their jobs, and although he finds it hard to turn them down, he knows repeatedly teaming up with a single group isn't particularly efficient. Sarah, a member of Counter Arrow, invites him to tag along on their new job, and although he is indecisive, he eventually agrees to join them. Rudeus joins Counter Arrow on a job to collect snowdrake scales from the Galgao ruins. They discuss their strategy and preparations, including using torches as weapons and for visibility. The entrance to the ruins is half covered in ice, and they encounter only a few monsters at the beginning. They must watch their footing on the icy ground and stay alert for any dangers. As the group navigates through a narrow cave, they come across a large open space with a glowing ceiling. They continue on to the Galgao ruins, a massive fortress built by a demon king during the First Human-Demon War. The group is attacked by giant bats, but they are able to defeat them. They enter the ruins through a side door and are amazed by the size and complexity of the structure. Timothy has a map of the ruins, but even he is surprised by the maze-like layout. The group speculates that the design was meant to accommodate a variety of demons with different abilities. After entering the fortress, the group encounters skeletons and a wraith. They learn that the skeletons are immortal and can only be defeated by destroying the wraith that animates them. Mimir uses divine magic to defeat the wraith, and the skeletons crumble to the ground. The group then reaches a hall covered in snowdrake scales, which they begin to collect. However, they hear cries from deeper in the ruins and prepare for combat. After considering their options, they decide to quickly finish collecting the scales before potentially getting mixed up in whatever is causing the commotion. The party debates whether to continue gathering scales or run away, with most members siding with Suzanne. Rudeus, not being a member of the party, doesn't have much say. Suddenly, snowdrakes attack, and the party is forced to fight for their lives. Rudeus tries to use earth magic to block the drakes, but they climb over it. The party manages to hold off the drakes, and eventually a group of reinforcements arrive to help. The battle ends with Rudeus delivering the final blow to the last snowdrake. As the group emerged from the ruins, they were confronted by a group of adventurers led by Soldat Heckler, a highly skilled swordsman. Soldat accused them of stealing their prey, but Timothy explained that they were on a separate job. It turned out that the Galgao ruins and Ilbron Cave had become connected, causing a mass migration of monsters. Despite the tension, the groups agreed to split the loot and go their separate ways. Later, Sarah invited Rudeus to an after-party, which he surprisingly accepted. The members of Counter Arrow celebrate their survival at a bar, with Rudeus opting for fruit juice instead of alcohol. They complain about the arrogant stepped leader in his party, but Rudeus refrains from joining in. Soldat Heckler enters the bar and apologizes for his behavior earlier, but then proceeds to insult Rudeus. Soldat's insults become increasingly aggressive, but Rudeus remains calm and silent. Soldat eventually breaks the table in anger, but his friends manage to pull him away. Rudeus waits for the storm to pass, knowing that there is no point in engaging with a drunkard. Sarah is angry at Soldat for insulting Rudeus and Timothy. She reflects on her hatred for the nobility, but also acknowledges Rudeus's bravery and loyalty to their party. She realizes that she doesn't hate Rudeus, but still doesn't like him either. She falls asleep with this realization. Chapter 4. Winter has arrived in the Northern Territories, making life difficult for residents who can no longer get fresh vegetables due to the snow closing off the region. Rudeus continues his daily routine of physical training, praying, and working as an adventurer, but feels like there is little left for him to accomplish in this town. His reputation as Quagmire Rudeus has spread among the younger generation of adventurers and merchants, but he still hopes to spread word of his existence to Zenith. At the Adventurers Guild, Rudeus takes an unranked request to clear snow off the road and rooftops. He works alongside other adventurers and children, using his strength to haul heavy loads of snow. Eventually, he is instructed to activate a magical device to organize the snow. Despite the hard work, Rudeus feels like he made the right decision taking this mission. As Rudeus finishes his snow shoveling job, he notices a young girl fall and hurt herself. He heals her frostbite with his magic, but she looks at him with despair, thinking he'll demand payment. Rudeus assures her he doesn't need anything, and moves on to his next task of charging a magical device to melt the snow. He's surprised to see his mana melt the snow so quickly, and the crowd cheers. Later he learns that 2 members of Counter Arrow, Mimir and Sarah, have died. Timothy is distraught, and Rudeus decides to go to Trier Forest to see if Sarah is still alive. He doesn't know why he's doing it, but he feels compelled to go. Rudeus is walking through a blizzard in Trier Forest, using his weather manipulation to clear the way. He encounters a snowfall Trent, which he defeats with fire and earth magic. He then comes across a herd of snow buffaloes and kills them all, finding the remains of Counter Arrow's healer, Mimir, in the process. He also finds Sarah's earring among the pile of bones, confirming her death. As he prepares to leave, he hears a strange noise and is attacked by an unknown monster, narrowly avoiding a massive block of ice. Rudeus was attacked by an icefall Trent, a massive tree with roots as wide as his torso. It conjured blocks of ice and swung its branches at him. He tried using stone cannon, but it had little effect. Rudeus noticed a human figure entwined in its roots and recognized it as Sarah. She was alive but badly injured. He managed to cut her free and escaped the Trent. He used healing magic to tend to her wounds, and they discussed how she ended up there. Rudeus had a strange feeling that something was off, but couldn't identify it. They decided to head back and bury Mimir's remains. Rudeus and Sarah return to Rosenberg, where they are greeted by familiar faces. Sarah recounts her rescue, and the group expresses their gratitude. Timothy offers to repay the debt, but Rudeus declines, feeling that they are even. The group accompanies Rudeus to his inn, where he finally gets some rest. As he watches Counter Arrow leave, Sarah silently mouths something to him, but he cannot read her lips. Rudeus decides to sleep until dinner, feeling like he can finally rest soundly. Chapter 5. Spring turned into summer, and a year had passed since Rudeus arrived in Rosenberg. He had become well known and worked with Counter Arrow more often. Sarah and Rudeus became closer and talked about their childhoods. Sarah wanted to learn swordplay and asked Rudeus to accompany her to buy a sword. Suzanne and Timothy teased them about going on a date, but Rudeus tried to remain normal. Rudeus and Sarah go on a shopping trip to a weapons store. Sarah is interested in Rudeus, and he realizes it's because of their crisis bonding. Rudeus suggests buying both short swords, but Sarah declines due to weight. Rudeus offers to lend her money, and they go to a bar afterwards. Sarah confesses she relaxes around Rudeus, and they get closer. Rudeus decides to move on from Eris and walks Sarah back to her room. Rudeus is cautious about getting too involved with Sarah, as he doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes he made with Eris. However, Sarah suggests they go to his room, and Rudeus can't resist the temptation. As they get intimate, Rudeus realizes that he can't get aroused. Sarah reveals that she only slept with him out of obligation for saving her life. Rudeus is left feeling cold and confused, wondering if this is how things will always be. Chapter 6. In Chapter 6 of Mushoku Tensei Light Novel Volume 7, the protagonist drinks heavily at a bar and gets into a fight with Soldat. He reveals that he's upset because a girl he liked left him after they had sex. Soldat suggests they visit the pleasure district to find a solution. They arrive and see women dressed suggestively, trying to attract customers. Soldat takes Rudeus to a brothel, where he explains the different types of prostitutes and services available. Soldat reveals that his party has a strict rule against relationships between members. Rudeus chooses the most expensive itinerary and picks a girl named Elise. He is led to a bath area where he is cleaned by two young girls. He then goes to a room where Elise is waiting for him. The room is dimly lit, and Elise is dressed in sheer clothing. Rudeus visits a brothel to try and overcome his fear of women. Elise, a professional, offers him a drink and some sweets before they begin. She reveals that Rudeus had once helped her little sister without asking for anything in return. Elise explains that many adventurers are violent towards the young understudies who work at the brothel. Despite Elise's efforts, Rudeus is unable to perform, and they try various techniques to no avail. Elise suggests that Rudeus needs a partner he can trust and not be afraid of. Soldat, Rudeus's friend, joins them, and they drink until dawn. As they leave, Rudeus takes advantage of his drunken state to touch Elise's butt. Soldat explains to Rudeus the importance of taking things slow in a labyrinth, comparing it to relationships. They discuss Sarah and Rudeus's rushed encounter, with Soldat suggesting that Sarah may have had feelings for Rudeus. Rudeus disagrees, believing it was just obligation. Elise leaves them, and Rudeus decides to try talking to Sarah again. However, when they run into Sarah and Suzanne, Sarah slaps Rudeus and tells him to never show his face again. Rudeus contemplates suicide, but Soldat convinces him to come with him to conquer a labyrinth. Soldat admits to misunderstanding Rudeus and no longer hates him. Later, Sarah is left feeling shocked and resentful after Rudeus rejects her advances. She spends her time cursing him and eventually learns that he is left with Soldat. Meanwhile, Rudius is struggling with his own emotions and decides to leave Rosenberg with Soldat. Sarah eventually tracks down Rudeus and learns the truth about his impotence. Elise, a prostitute who witnessed their encounter, advises Sarah to give Rudius some space. Sarah returns to her inn after leaving the pleasure district and learns that Rudeus has left town. She reflects on her feelings and regrets not apologizing to him. She realizes that his departure without saying anything is a sign of rejection. Sarah curls up in bed and doesn't move until dawn. She knows her love for Rudius has ended but hopes to apologize sincerely if they meet again. Epilogue. After spending a year traveling with Soldat, Rudeus continued to work as an adventurer, participating in B to S ranked missions. He occasionally thought about his past relationships with Eris and Sarah, but his main focus was finding Zenith. Meanwhile, in a small country in the Northern Territories, two adventurers discussed a rumor about a strong magician named Quagmire Rudeus. A woman named Elena Lee's Dragonroad overheard their conversation and propositioned them for information. She eventually found out that Rudeus's mother had been found and set out to tell him. Extra chapter. In this extra chapter of Mushoku Tensei light novel, Volume 7, we learn about Ariel Anemoi Asura, a student at the prestigious University of Magic in the Renoa Kingdom. Ariel is a first-year student who has already distinguished herself with her natural charisma and talent. She has a plan to recruit exceptional talent from the university to help her regain power in the Asura Kingdom, where she fled after losing a political battle. To do this, she aims to become the president of the student council, a feat that has never been accomplished by a second-year student. With the help of her subordinates, including the dreamy knight Luke Greyrat and the pretty boy Fitz, Ariel sets out to achieve her goal. However, she faces harassment from two delinquent students, Linnea and Persena, who are eventually exposed as the masterminds behind the attacks. Fitz has a plan to use this information to help Ariel win the presidency in a landslide victory. Ariel and her attendants plan to put a stop to the bullying of the Doldia tribe's princesses. They provoke the bullies into attacking them first, and Fitz, one of Ariel's attendants, uses his magic to defeat the 20 beastfolk. Linnea and Persena, the leaders of the bullies, are the only ones left standing, but Fitz defeats them too. He demands that they never raise their hand against Ariel again and leaves them drenched in water. Fitz rarely speaks, but his voice is high and almost feminine. In this extra chapter of Mushoku Tensei light novel Volume 7, we see how Ariel became the student council president and secured her position by defeating the delinquents who ruled the school. She then used her position to make contacts with the Magicians Guild and the rulers of Renoa Kingdom. Now, in her third year, she is looking for more exceptional individuals to join her cause and has a list of potential candidates. Fitz recognizes the name Rudius Greyrat on the list and is surprised and delighted.